That seems to be a popular first name, Ivan. If I'm even
I
saying
think
that.
it'll be a fan, I guess.
Ifan, yeah, I'm a fan of
I
that name.
guess.
And the other Ifan, Ewan or Ewan, is on guitar. Gerwin Murray is on bass. Lewis Williams, thank God.
It's
Uh,
pronounced Guitar.
don't, are you back now? You're just fucking taking the piss. Uh, Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another Friday installment of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and it is an episode dedicated to a song that we were suggested to listen to by one of you guys out there. In particular, it was suggested to us by Neil Thornton, 3544. I don't know the importance of that number, but maybe it's his make and model. But yes, Neil Thornton, you have been heard. Your song is on deck. John and I, we flipped the coin, and John came up as the reactor for this one. So I've already listened to this and done my homework, and John is going to go off and give it a listen himself. John, this is a band whose name is pronounced as Sŵnami,
Mm.
but it is spelt as I believe you saw on the spreadsheet in the Welsh fashion, as is its title, Uno Cydio Tanio, if I'm not mistaken, but I probably am. But yes, that is the name of the track. I believe it translates to Join Seas and Fire. Or join Seas Fire if all my websites and homework have proven fruitful and correct. So that is the name of the track today. This will be interesting. I've never listened to any Welsh music that has been delivered in the language of Wales. So this will be interesting, probably for you as much as it was for me when I first gave this a listen. And I'd be really intrigued to hear what you have to say about it, as well as some of our listeners out there when this hits the YouTube sphere and the comments field are filled with people's feedback. But yes, please, John, give this track a listen and let us all know what you make of it.
Will do.
Dawel bach, mae'r dyddiau'n dal I lifo I gyd rhyfedd yn aros am byrllan o'n gilion A wedi'r cyr, a wedi'r oll ffarwelio Bi a daw y golau nôl Bi a daw o'i gyd yn ôl Hyn o Cydio Tanio Daw'r darnau nôl fel un Hyn o Cydio Tanio Daw'r darnau nôl fel un Gweld y byd dim ond drwy lygad camera Yn curo llaw I fod I sŵn yr holl gelwyddau Ond am byddai yr ochr draw i'r ren Fy sbryd y daw y golau nôl Bryd y daw o'i gyd yn ôl I hun o
So that was an interesting start. The strings come in, and then very, very quickly, this, I don't know, vocoder, auto-tune, pitch ramped voice. Not a fan. Not a fan whatsoever. All right, that side. And then this like really sort of fat beat and heavy bass come in, but it's underpinned with these lovely, luscious strings that continue through it. Sort of smooths everything out. It's got a sort of rich quality to it. Yeah, interesting. And then the sort of presume like the chorus. Um, it's still with the words of group song. It's almost like a mantra. Um, Clearly, this is Welsh language. The only Welsh language music I've listened to has been via Super Furry Animals. So not familiar with the lingo, but the amount of lyrics I normally pick up doesn't make any difference, I guess. This has got a nice, quite an opulent feel to it. Yeah, I'd say like the production choices aren't really my thing, but I could see this going down a storm with its target audience. Not a problem. Okay, let's see how it progresses.
Cydio, Tanio, nawr darnau nofel un Felino. Cydio, Tanio, nawr darnau nofel un ond wrth edrych mai byddwn i'n gweld y gwerthfawr sownd yn lle ac o'r blaen.
That bit there is it's modern soul, isn't it? It's got a bit of that sort of throwback to that crossovery R&B, whatever you want to call it, soul that sort of came out of Puff Daddy's ego after he did his outstanding sort of hip hop stuff. Yeah, it's got a really nice touch to it. You could imagine someone rapping over the middle A of this quite easily. It has got that a little bit of that sort of retro feel to it. But I like the way he sort of like expanded the vocals there. That's the most soul-y bit it sounds. Let's go back a wee bit.
Felino, Cydio, Tanio, nawr darnau nofel un ond wrth edrych mai byddwn i'n gweld y gwerthfawr sownd yn lle ac o'r blaen. Heb nod yn deheu am osoedd y darnau nofel un. Dyma'r amser i adar gan fod yn cyfle newydd wrth i'r lleisiau ddod yn Cydio, Tanio, nawr darnau nofel un Felino. Cydio, Tanio, nawr darnau nofel un ond wrth edrych mai byddwn i'n gweld y gwerthfawr sownd yn lle ac o'r blaen. Heb nod yn deheu am osoedd y darnau nofel un.
Interesting. There's bits of that I liked, but that sort of a high cartoony voice did put me off a hell of a lot. You'd be surprised to hear. I wish I knew what it all meant. Heb nod. But luckily, we know someone who's obviously clearly fluent in the Welsh language, and they can explain every nuance to me. And that person is Andy.
All right, welcome back. You endeavored to listen to a tune from your neighbors to the west. What do you make of this track, John?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying I believe the only Welsh language music I have listened to, and I have, has come via Super Furry Animals, and their lead singer, roughly his solo work. So I have heard, Welsh stuff before.
So their solo work was done in Welsh. like the language?
Super Foreigners have done at least one album totally in Welsh
Oh, I think I
that
remember
I've
you
heard.
saying.
They've probably done more, but there's one that I know of, and I'm not even going to attempt it. And I'm sure he's done solo work in Welsh, whether it's a whole album or just tracks I've heard. But
Okay.
yeah, thing with that is you're already familiar with the band and with his voice, and so it's
Hmm.
kind of like a familiarity to it. And he's making these noises which I don't understand,
Hmm.
um, in his own beautiful mother tongue. But
Hmm.
it's not really that much of a leap. You don't. As I say, judging by the amount of lyrics that I normally pick up, this isn't really going to make a lot of difference.
Hmm.
Um, but there you go. So it starts with these really nice strings. And just as I'm about to comment on it, in comes this pitch ramped, auto tuned anime voice. I'm
Hmm.
getting sort of anthropomorphized cartoon moon faced tree rat with huge wet eyes. Um, Obviously, there's a grand tradition of this stretching back to the trailblazing work done by Alvin and his chipmunks. Um, you'll be shocked to hear this, but it's not my go-to sound of choice.
So,
It immediately raises two questions, and they are what the fuck and why the fuck. But anyway, fat beat kicks in with a heavy bass, and it's supporting those strings become even more lush,
yeah.
and we get confirmation through our ears and the lyrics on the screen that this is indeed a Welsh language song. Um, the main singer has a decent voice. It goes through the chorus. I'm just kind of finding my way at this point, and it is really all like beats and the sort of strings, and I think there's a bit of synthy work as well. It's kind of stirring the pot, as it were. But it
Hmm.
sounds really nice. Then we get to I believe it's a chorus because we get the title words announced, and they do it in a group voice as well, which is really nice. And then I think it's kind of like the post-chorus that comes out of. There's a really pretty melody, actually, which then continues into the next verse. Um, I will say at this point, it's probably the production choices, which wouldn't be an issue for contemporary listeners, or what stops me from sort of buying into this. I
Hmm.
mean, silly cartoon voice aside, it has a feel to it though, at its sort of core of those sort of crossover R&B songs from the late 90s, early noughties. The same sort of feel to them that can be quite rich as well. I mean, when overly done, almost syrupy, with that really heavy artificial beat. I'm
Yeah.
not saying this has got that far. And I always felt that came out of the back of the sort of mid late 90s work that Puff Daddy did. I mean, absolute genius with Mary J. Blige and this like new soul hip hop bit. And then he went completely up his own arse
Yeah.
and knocked out this horrible stuff. And he has got a lot to answer for. And he can change his name as many times as he wants, but we will track him down.
Oh,
So yeah.
he's got a lot to answer for. I don't know if you've seen some of the
Yeah.
news
Oh,
lately,
yeah.
but
That side of the personal stuff. Yeah. Jesus. But yeah, so it does have that feel. And you can easily imagine somebody actually just rapping over the middle eight of this,
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
break and a few sort of women with really bad weaves, sort of wafting to this in the background. But anyway, but it's the sort of opulent sound of the strings that really make a difference. And they're kind of doing a bit of a Barry White trick in this, which he did very well with very sometimes quite average music. They put this in there, and they had even like the short sort of bowing motions going through some of the verses, which sort of drives it through, and then the strings spread out the chorus. And this is all done like you don't even like kind of notice it, but it just gives you this feeling, really nice. We got the second chorus now, and the title words again delivered, but they're almost like a mantra at this point.
Yes.
And I think I noticed the first time round, or was it the second? I don't remember which is which, but we'll call it. I'll have to pronounce it as I say it because I can't actually remember. I think it was like Uno was replaced by. It's written Huno. I think they pronounce it like Hina or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they changed that word, and then I think it's kind of like Kuja and then Tanio, something like that. Anyway, I'd have a bit more than one reaction for you to master that tongue. um, Coming out the second chorus, the lead vocal goes in a bit of a run, which I really like, the sort of little vocal track he does there. It sort of goes up a bit. And it's quite soulful, and it strikes me at this point that this really, apart from anything else, it's a modern soul track, you know. That's the heart of it. And I really like that part, actually. I did pull that back. I am managing at this point very successfully to zone out the cartoon voice and all the other auto-tune effects that they waz in during the chorus as well.
Yeah.
I get it. Some people have just grown up with that, and you see like Rick Beato's sort of rundown of the top 10 Spotify tunes around the world, and 9 of them are auto-tuned heavily.
Yeah.
And people almost expect it now, but I'm not from that generation, and it sounds like fucking hell to me. But as I managed to tune it out. And then at 150, we get this sort of crunchy breakdown, which is really quite yeah, interesting. So you get this almost like electronic rippling and scrunching effects. It's not like a scraper. It's more like something's been scrunched and then taken, plastic being taken, in and out. It's really quite weird and arresting, but I guess it does the trick. And then we get the kind of standard bog standard sort of like echoey voice, and the phase of the vocals go out of focus and then come back in, and then beat drops, all standard stuff. But that does, at that point, allow us to appreciate the strings even clearer because they're just there and they're sounding great. So then we get another repeat of the chorus and then the post-chorus, head nod, and we're out. I would say this is not really my cup of tea. It's not really even in the same plantation, but there was some decent touches to this, and I would imagine to a target audience, this would be seen as a chilled out, absolute smooth banger. And I would love to know what it all means.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. I would agree with just about everything that you said. There were parts of this song that I found like complete candidness. I thought it was annoying. Like the higher pitched, kind of.
Yeah.
I even had like Alvin and Chipmunks moment, just like you alluded to. And the auto tuning stuff is not for me either. Like I just missed that. You know what I mean? But the strings were gorgeous. The voice proper of the singer was really great.
Yeah.
And if you take out some of the production choices auto-tune that I didn't like, it was all really bright and polished and sounded really good. I also found like this uplifting kind of nature to the whole movement of the song that I could easily see translating to a lot of people, no matter the language barrier or if there even existed one. If you were to listen to this, I mean, I'm sure those who speak Welsh get even more redeeming features out of this song than a couple of guys like us, but it still had that feeling of like you said, mantra is a good word for that. The title coming through, and then mantra with the idea of lifting yourself up or persevering or whatever. It had that kind of vibe to it for me too, which I found pleasant and listenable for sure. So yeah, I mean, you take out some of the stuff and you're left with some really good ideas and some good aspects and choices, and then a couple of other ones that don't ruin the song for me, but they do make me go, why'd you do that? But to each their own. And it was fun, as you know, I don't want to speak for you, but for me it was fun kind of like listening to this. I mean, I'll listen. Unfortunately, it's kind of unavoidable for the most part. You can't. I've heard K-pop. I've heard music from other countries, but very rarely have I heard anything that is Welsh. Well, like I've heard music from people from Wales, but I haven't heard like the spoken word sort of Welsh language put to music before, that owns a little bit more of its own culture, as opposed to just being like, oh, this is universally appealing, and it just so happens the people that wrote it were from Wales. So I enjoyed that aspect of it as well. But yeah, let's get into this band. Boy, did I have a lot of fun with some of the words that I came across when doing my research for this one. So all of you Welsh speakers out there, please throw me a bone here. This is my first dance We really should have. I don't know if it would have been fair if we flipped this around because I don't know how much more command you have over the Welsh language than I do. I'm guessing not much. So, Sŵnami is how you pronounce the name, as I mentioned earlier. They are a Welsh indie rock group from Dolgellau, Northwest Wales. That's my best attempt. Who sing predominantly in Welsh, which explains this tune. Their name is a play on the word tsunami, and the Welsh word for the sound soon, SW with a, I don't know, that's not an umlaut, but it's sort of like a raised pitch. SWN to convey the idea of a wave of sound, which is an interesting sort of like mashing of two things together there. They have released one EP and two full-length albums. The band won the Welsh Language Album of the Year prize at the 2016 National Eisteddfod of Wales. And what Eisteddfod, I think, is the
Eisteddfod.
Eisteddfod, which is a festival of like arts
yeah.
and culture and music, obviously.
It's known around the world.
Okay.
And they quite often have like Welsh Singer of the Year at one of the Eisteddfods as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, known around the world except in this corner of Baltimore because I had no idea what that was until I looked up what it was. So, Sŵnami was formed around the beginning of 2011, and the band's lead singer is Bangor University graduate Ivan Davies. The other members of the band are Ivan Ioane, or Ioane. That seems to be a popular first name, Ivan. If I'm even saying
I think it'll be a fan, I guess.
A fan, yeah. I'm a fan of that name. And the other Ioane or Ioane is on guitar. Gerwin Murray is on bass. Lewis Williams, thank God.
It's pronounced Guitar.
Are you back now? You're just fucking taking the piss. Lewis Williams plays drums, and Gruff Jones, that's a fucking great name, is on synth. Of course, I could be pronouncing Gruff wrong altogether. It could just be Tom. They describe their style as rocky with a bit of synth. And the band won the Battle of the Bands at the 2011 National Eisteddfod in Wrexham. In 2012, they beat 9 other bands to win Wakestock Battle of the Bands and secure a place on the lineup for that year's Wakestock Festival. In 2015, Sŵnami won awards for Best EP or Single for their single Gwenwyn, and Best Video for Gwenwyn at the Welsh Isalar Music Festivals. Do you know what the Y, just the lone Y sound makes in Welsh?
No, I imagine it's E.
Yeah, that's it. It is in Spanish as well. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't drawing from the wrong pot of knowledge there. So yeah,
no idea.
Yeah, the band's first album, Sŵnami, self-titled, was nominated for the Welsh Music Prize in 2016 and was the winner of the Welsh Language Album of the Year at the 2016 National Eisteddfod held in Abergavenny. That's my best and only.
Spot on. Abergavenny.
All right, excellent. In 2022, the band released their second full-length album, which is exactly the same as their name and their first album, except with an additional I at the end. So Sŵnami. This track is featured on that album. And in her review of the album, Emma Schofield of Wales Art Review writes, "There's something about Sŵnami's music which always makes me think of summer." And that doesn't come as much as a surprise to me because it is bright and lush. And perhaps it's the synth or the slightly dreamlike undertones. Either way, it's the kind of sound that makes me want to sit back, close my eyes, and just follow the music. She added, Huno Cydio Tanio is guaranteed to get stuck in your head, as is the album's lead single, What Tin Clywed. Come on. This is an absolute car crash of a pronunciation, which has an anthemic feel about it. Some take a little longer to grow on you. Slower burns like Concerta take a few listens before they really embed. The album's opening track, Theater, previously released as a single back in 2021, is another such example, which doesn't entirely do justice to the depth of the rest of the album. Without doubt, the strongest track are those where Davy's vocals are allowed to shine and where the slightly chaotic vibe of the album is given free reign. So, it's an endorsement. And let's get into these lyrics, shall we? So, I am going to be reading the translated to English version of these. I will not be reading them in Welsh. This would be a 60-minute episode that would be
I feel
constantly.
robbed. I feel robbed.
Yes, yes, yeah. Where you are getting, I feel saved because I'm not touching that shit. But here we are. Very quietly, the days keep flowing by, all the same, waiting till the tide goes out. But after the blow, after all the goodbyes, soon the light will come back. Soon the light will come back. To join us, seize us, fire us. The pieces will come back together. Like joining, seizing, firing, the pieces will come back together. See the world, but only through a camera's eye, clapping to drown the sound of all the lies. But will there be gold? The other side of the rainbow? When will the light come back? When will it all come back? To seize us, pardon me, to join us, seize us, fire us. The pieces will come back as one. Like joining, seizing, firing, the pieces will come back as one. But looking ahead, we will see the value, or be stuck in the same place as before, without a goal, longing to put the pieces back as one. Now is the time to rediscover the world, a new opportunity for the voices to come together, joining, taking, sparking. The pieces will come back as one, joining, seizing, firing. The pieces will come back as one. But looking ahead, we will see the value or be stuck in the same place as before without a goal, longing to put the pieces back as one. So I don't know if like the pieces are two individuals that are being separated by this. I mean, the opening sort of starts off with this idea of like, a horn blast and a ship taking off, I think. So I don't know if it's this idea of separation that is temporary and these two pieces will be brought back together in the end.
I
Um,
wonder if it's to do with community.
Oh, yeah, I mean that could be like two factions that are separated by ideals or, politics or whatever coming back together and unifying.
Yeah, it's just there's been for a long time now. That's like one of the issues in Wales is the industry was stripped out of Wales, and so you have particularly mining. So you have whole communities which then have nothing to offer, especially the young people coming through. So you get this desertion from the countryside, and that's one of the issues. And bring them together, and bring together. I mean, the Welsh identity in terms of their language. I don't know when it was brought back as actually being taught in schools, but it wasn't that long ago. Last, I don't know, 20 years, perhaps even less. Um, so it was kind of beaten out, not beaten out of them, but it was discouraged to use Welsh, and then it came back in and
Mm,
the roads. I mean, it's their language, it's their country. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's just ridiculous, but that they shouldn't have it. So I think perhaps bringing all that together and those identities and those different views, um, it feels like a sort of struggling to unite, as it were.
Mm.
That's the feeling I got from this, whether it's
Oh,
people, communities, relationships, whatever. Yeah.
no, I mean your close proximity and it's in, Wales is intrinsically tied to the UK and the history there is probably something you're more familiar
The
with,
poor
not probably,
buggers.
very much more familiar with than I am. So yeah, that's insightful and interesting to hear that. Can I ask who pushed the diminishing of the language? Was that the crown or like who tried to
Yeah, well,
wean them off of it?
you have quite this weird structure of the UK where it's four nations and one's a corner of a completely independent nation,
Yeah,
as it
yeah.
were. Um, and they kind of worked together, particularly like 70s, 80s. It was under the blue heel. And then we started getting various, Scotland's got the best sort of independence of the lot. They haven't got independence, but they have some sort of autonomy with their parliament.
Hmm.
They brought in a parliament in Northern Ireland, which they go through all these silly fun and games, and they walk out and shut it down for. And I don't know how long Stormont's been shut recently, but I mean, a couple of years easy. So all the bollocks with the customs and all that hasn't been sorted out because they can't help but arguments themselves. I mean, the poor people over there must be so sick of the politicians.
Right.
That's a power thing. But in terms of like Scotland is able to determine things like student fees. So they decided that university would be free for students and they don't pay university fees. Same as some of their prescription healthcare and some other things as well. They actually fund and run most of their own health service and education and other things. They get money from Westminster, but they then decide how it's carved up.
Mhm.
Wales have got an assembly, but a lot of their stuff is still tied. Wales and England are tied together in terms of funding and control. So they probably have the least amount of control out of the sort of four nations.
Mm.
Um, and I think within that as well, there was probably the people running Wales for a long time would have been more aligned with Westminster than with Cardiff. And so they just didn't encourage the sort of national identity as much as it's come through in the last 20 years,
Mm.
and everyone should have, their own identity, I think. So it's just crazy, the way
Yeah.
that it's kind of almost suppressed. And they were sort of, I think closest to England. And so probably most bullied. I'm probably going to get lots of messages now about how wrong I am. And I'm quite happy to be corrected. That's the impression I have.
Right. Right. Which
I'm not
is,
saying it's correct, but that's the impression I have of the
yeah.
situation.
Well, no, it's interesting to hear that and to get more insight into the dynamics of the four nations. Because my assumption about what you said about Scotland was kind of confirmation of my assumption. Um, I had honestly thought that maybe the roles have been reversed a bit with Wales and Northern Ireland. I thought Northern Ireland, newest to the grouping, would be, kind of lorded over the strongest. But the proximity thing makes sense too. That you described with it. I mean, it's right there. It essentially looks like a chunk of England, right there to the
Yeah,
left.
yeah. I
So,
mean, England did its damage in the island of Ireland, a while back, and
mhm.
a lot of them haven't recovered from that. That was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, it's odd. The other interesting thing to about like well, language links with identity, and actually I think it's come back so much now that the Welsh language is probably the strongest out of the sort of Gaelic languages,
yeah,
and and yeah, the other countries have real strong national characteristics. You may see them as stereotypes or whatever, but they have stronger forms of identity. The Welsh, the Scottish, the Northern Irish, and the Irish, and the English is the blandest of all identities. But they're the ones who keep the other buggers down, as it were.
yeah, yeah.
So I guess yeah, strong arming is our national identity.
Well, if there's one thing that I could say with confidence from my perspective is that the coolest flag out of all of them is hands down the Welsh flag. I mean, it's got a fucking dragon on it. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, yeah.
So take that for what it's worth from this Yankee who knows very little about anything over there. But yeah, this was a interesting listen, sparked some really interesting conversation. I now feel like I've mastered the Welsh language. Like I'm ready now. So thank you for giving this a listen, John, and for filling in some gaps on information where you could. And anybody out there in the listening audience who can kind of fill us in on stuff, please jump in and feel free. Neil Thornton, thank you so much for offering this up as a song suggestion for us to listen to. Enjoyed the conversations that it sparked, and I enjoyed many of the aspects of the song itself. And I thought it was really interesting and a cool opportunity to listen to some music from outside of just, England, Scotland, or I mean, even stuff out of Wales, but that is more traditional to the language over there and perhaps even the culture. So that was really cool. So thanks again. Everybody out there in the listening audience, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We really do appreciate it. It helps us with the algorithms and pushing out our content so that we can bring more people into our tent, our international tent. And hopefully John and I will see all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.